Let's talk about Antony quickly, because there appears to be a lot of dialogue, let's say, regarding discourse regarding Antony.
Ten Hagian discourse.
Well, no, anti-Ten Hagian discourse, it would appear. Okay. It seems as though Antony, very one-footed player, has earned a kind of reputation as a bit of an easy hit for people, just to say he's rubbish because he can only play with one foot. Now, as a left-handed person myself, someone very aware of how
very one-handed,
very one-handed you can be.
You're actually quite ambidextrous, aren't you?
Only when I no, no, I'm not. No, good lord. What was I saying?
Wow. You've really broken yourself on that one.
Broke myself.
Anthony's all right.
It wasn't broken.
What I'm saying.
We were in harmony there. Did you hear that?
Oh, were we?
Yeah, that was good. Anthony scored a goal with his right foot.
He scored a goal with his right foot. Point I'm making, right, is that that most of the discourse around Antony so far seems to be he can only play with one foot. Having said that, right, he's played something like 10 games. He scored 4 goals, or 5 now, is it? Mostly with that one foot. Mostly doing the same thing that people don't really seem to be able to stop as easily, given that
I think I know why it is, why people don't like him.
But also, before I do want to hear it, but also, he played for Ten Hag before. He seems to do an awful lot off the ball that isn't referenced at all in these conversations about why people don't like him. But what is it you think the issue is?
Because when he gets the ball wide, you're excited because it's a winger, and it's not because it's Man United and you think Ryan Giggs is going to run past everyone. But it's he gets the ball wide on the wing, he can't go past people. He doesn't really have that pure speed to do it, and he's playing against defenders who are all really good 1v1. So you just can't really dribble past. So you have to go backwards. So it looks like you've got no creativity or ideas or whatever. But there's loads of examples when Antony, there's I was trying to think what it was. It was when I was doing the Casemiro research. There's a little spell of play that I think shows how well Antony plays in that team, and how he just moves into positions where he needs to be, fill in the gaps that you're meant to in the Ten Hagian system. But he receives the ball, and the half turn is back to, well, not half turn is back to goal, but knows exactly what's behind him, spins between 2 players, which then allows him to put a ball through for Fernandes on a run from out to in, which gets a chance on goal, which United wouldn't be able to do with the players they previously had there. And what they started doing as well is getting Bruno Fernandes, I'm going to try to say his name properly, where he goes out wide to the right, so you get 2 different angles of crossing. You've got the 2 different curves, easier to describe it as you're watching it on the podcast version on YouTube.
You've just drawn curves with your fingers.
Yeah, and you can't hear that, but if I do it more,
maybe if you do it more vigorously,
maybe it'll work. But maybe that's another thing as well. You get different angles to get the ball in the net. But he's a decent player. You just can't. Not every player can score 25 goals a season. Not every player.
No.
If his return this season is 8 goals and 7 assists, that's quite good. It's expensive for it.
Seems like it might be, though. I mean, also, John, it's not just what a player does on the ball, right? Ten Hag clearly wants to play in a certain way, and seemingly believes that Antony offers something to that the players already at Manchester United don't. What do you think that would be if it's not just cutting inside and shooting with the left foot?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest impacts I think Erik Ten Hag has had has been able to implement a form of pressing, which has improved them in games where they might not usually have as much control. So now Manchester United are much better at pressing in the final third. It means against teams who maybe would cause them a lot of problems if they ended up just being forced further and further back, they're able to stop that. And Antony is really important to their forward press. So Antony is very good at in those situations that I like to describe as hybrid pressing, when you've got a player who's going to go man for man on different players in different scenarios. So if the ball's on one side of the field, he'll be responsible for one player. If the ball's on the other side, he is responsible for the other, and he has to almost sit between those 2 players and read which player to go to in any given moment. Yeah. Manchester United don't have anyone else who can read the play quite so well at this point.
Well, it's a job that isn't entrusted to any other player currently.
Sure, I think they could use Alanga is fairly good, but the thing with Antony is he's worked with Erik Ten Hag for a number of seasons now, right? So you're not only going to bring in a player who what their upside is going to be in possession, but he is also a player who understands those sorts of hybrid systems, so that Ten Hag can bring him in. He was excellent, for example, in both the Spurs and Chelsea games, which a lot of people saw as being a really big turning point for the Erik Ten Hag system as well. So I think that, he's one of the probably one of the best wingers in terms of out of possession stuff in the league as well. People aren't going to focus on that as much because people don't focus on the out of possession stuff as much.
Yeah.
But I think that's been a really important aspect to the way that they play.
It's good to hear that, though, because whilst I don't seek to only defend Antony, I don't really care about that. What I do care about is when all of a sudden it seems like everyone is allowed to just go, oh, we can only shoot with one foot, and therefore he's which just seems like too easy a hit for me to want to allow people to get away with.
We said it early.
Yeah, now we've moved on to a new thing.
I think it's worth saying as well that wing dynamics are an important aspect of what wingers can do. And we've talked a lot about how Diogo Dalot is playing a fairly... I said Dalot and you're going to be like, it's Dalot, isn't it?
I didn't say anything.
You looked at me, though, with those judgmental eyes.
I live inside your
Diogo
head.
Dalot has been playing a really interesting role in that team. He likes to invert. He likes to attack very centrally. There's almost times where he looks like he's playing a 10 position. And I think that is a downside to Antony's game because I think, as JJ said, if you get him 1v1 isolated against fullbacks, he doesn't look as dangerous as he could do. But as soon as you start getting players around him, it then becomes a lot easier for him to get in, to hit the bylines behind, etc., etc. And so I think that there's definitely something going on with the players around him at the moment. They're not getting those players around him, and they're not seeing that upside from him.
Remember when they signed Sancho for loads of money, and he just doesn't get in the team.
I remember that, yeah. I do remember that.
He's meant to be in that position, isn't he? But
I'm curious to see what happens with that over the next sort of year or two. You know, I feel like that is with the team doing well, with lots of the players doing well, with Rashford's red hot form at the moment. Casemiro, as you mentioned, what are you saying? Because I said red hot.
Yeah, we didn't say it in your Joe Devine voice. You did it like a normal. But
do you know what? It'd
be like if I said it's an eye-watering amount they paid for Jadon Sancho, isn't it?
It's being in front of this big podcast microphone in a podcast studio makes me go, with their red hot form at the moment. It's interesting to see what will happen with the Jadon Sancho story over the next year. Now, listen.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, and you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.